an environmentalist, and I am a commissioner, the Global Commission on the Economics of Water, serving as the youngest commissioner. And I just want to begin from where we stopped, because I think we need to start seeing the hydrological cycle now as the bloodstream that connects all of us and connects communities and connects, ecosystems and a lot of the different things in this planet. And I think the moment we begin to see it as that, then the aspect of collective responsibility comes in. And I think for me, looking at how water travels long distances around the world is a really definite aspect that we are all interconnected and very much interdependent on water, and definitely both the transboundary blue water, as we have seen, that flows through the lakes and the rivers, and also the green water that is in the soil moisture and also the vapor in the air. And right now, looking at what is happening around the world, we have seen a lot of loss of our wetlands, a lot of deforestation, and of course also soil moisture. And these are realities that are happening that are actually disrupting our hydrological cycle, that is actually the very basis upon which we depend on and upon which humanity and life on Earth is sustained. And definitely with this disruption as well, it does affect also our carbon sinks, and this is accelerating global warming, as you have been able to see in the science. And definitely this means that it's also reducing the availability of fresh water for plants and animals. And what I would ask is what this means actually for us. What does this mean for communities? What does this mean for people at the grassroots levels, for instance, that are the most affected by this impact? And I've personally had an opportunity to engage and work with communities across the African continent that have been affected by the impacts of this disruption of the hydrological cycle. And I think these are issues that are evident that we ought to begin acting collectively as a globe to address these issues. And just recently in my country, we've just come from a season where we had the worst drought in over 40 years, and immediately after the drought, we had extreme floods that were wiping out communities, wiping out their livelihoods, wiping out their homes, their livestock, and everything that they depend on for their very own survival. So we need to look at all these perspectives and be able to remember and understand that it's about time that we acted collectively. So this actually means that our communities and societies across the globe can no longer now rely on a stable hydrological cycle, and at the same time can no longer rely on rainfall patterns. And if you look at the agriculture sector, for instance, and this is an example I'm giving from the experience of farmers that I've been able to work with in my community, for instance, it's very difficult right now for them to carry on with their livelihoods because crop failures have become a norm, and have become a norm because you can no longer predict when to plant or when to harvest. And this is actually driving the aspects of food insecurity, driving communities as well to poverty, to hunger, which again bring us back to the point that water flows through all the sustainable development goals. And it means that we will not be able to achieve any of them if we do not address this issue about water. And also it brings out the perspective of the interconnectedness between water, climate, and biodiversity. And as well, when you talk about collective responsibility, is looking at who are actually the actors and who are we leaving behind, what roles are we not recognizing within the space. And I like to reference local communities and indigenous communities as well within this context, because they have already been conserving. Indigenous communities, for instance, make only less than 7% of the global population, but they've already been conserving more than 80% of the remaining biodiversity on the planet. So we need to make sure that we have that recognition and also that strengthening of the existing capacities as well within the local level, because there are solutions, there are key learnings, there is knowledge, ideas, and innovations that can be tapped into to be able to elevate this conversation at the global scale. And on the other perspectives is, we know that local and regional actions are actually very essential to be able to address these challenges. And they have been going on, and this is what communities are actually using to build their own resilience to the climate crisis. But yet, we will not be able to succeed locally if we don't have collective global action and global efforts of different sectors and disciplines and countries, regions coming together collectively, because this is a shared responsibility. And a shared responsibility is what calls for collective action. A shared responsibility actually transcends the borders, it transcends the disciplines, and it transcends all the sectors. And it's clear that if we respond collectively, then perhaps we'll be able to keep the water cycle within a range that actually secures a safe and a just future. Many of the times we are often looking at how to address challenges today, but we are leaving out how are we preparing for the challenges of the future? How are we making sure that everything that we are doing today actually ensures, that safe and just water future for our children, for our young generation at the same time? And I think this is where we must now begin to reinvent how we govern water for the common good, and how we govern water not just at one level, but at all levels across. And this is going to require us to have also intercultural exchange and reinvent the kind of partnerships within the space. And I believe for me, just water partnerships would be a critical aspect of this, but they must also embody the principles of intergenerational equity, justice, and also inclusion. And inclusion in a way that, different stakeholders are able to define what inclusion means to them. I believe even in the context of, for instance, the just energy transition, for my community, just energy transition is actually one where we're moving from no energy to energy. And there are contexts where a just energy transition for them is being able to, transition from fossil fuels to no fossil fuels. And I think being able to look at that context within that aspect that is intergenerational and ensures equity is going to be very, very important. And also looking at how we can be able to, have plans that also support the scaling up of already existing innovations and initiatives. And I think for me, young voices are very, very paramount when it comes to the development of what these intergenerational policies and practices look like. And they also reflect the needs and aspirations of the next generation. And most importantly, and with the work that I've been able to work on within the Commission, being able to lead the Youth Water Agenda, being able to work with young people across the globe, I have seen that when it comes to being able to include the young people, when it comes to being able to advance the different policy agendas and commitments that we have, young people are actually the agents of change within this space. Not only because they make up half of the world's population, and actually in my continent, in sub-Saharan Africa, we make up 70% of the population. Not only because of the numbers, but also because of the innovations, the ideas, and the fact that they see the urgency with which these issues need to be taken with, and they're actually already championing the actions and the changes within their own communities. And I believe these are the opportunities that already exist in terms of where do we move from here. So these are opportunities that already, we're not reinventing a wheel, but they're already existing solutions and ideas that we can be able to escalate and upscale, that are replicable across the world. And I think also, when it comes to this perspective, the way we address trade-offs today, for instance, is going to define the challenges and the opportunities that younger generations are going to face right now and also in the future. So I think for me, this is an opportunity for us to be able to reflect and find that common ground of being able to work together collectively in recognition that this is not a problem that can continue being solved in silos. This is not a problem that we can continue not to talk about. I think this is an opportunity for us to begin to have a conversation. It's an opportunity for us to look at what opportunities exist that can enable us to move to the next level. And so I hope also this session is going to help us figure out the opportunities that exist even for multilateralism, because we are going to need a systemic approach and also collective responsibility. So what is currently not working and why is it not working, and what can the water space, for instance, within this be able to bring up within the conversations in a way that actually water becomes the organizing principles across all the other existing policy communities, for instance, because it does flow across all the sustainable development goals and it's very much interconnected, and then we begin to see it from that lens and not really in terms of seeing it in cycles. And I think lastly for me is collective action means acting as one for water, because we are all connected through water. Thank you all so much.